It was a cold, gray afternoon in Boston, Massachusetts. On January 15, 1919, children were making their way home from school, and horses pulled wagons through the narrow, cobblestone streets. And there, in the city's north end, a giant steel tank loomed over the rooftops. It was filled with 2 million gallons of thick, dark molasses. This metallic mountain, 90 feet wide and 50 feet tall, was a familiar sight to the workers below. They had grown used to its groaning sounds, the occasional leaks, and the metallic creaks that echoed down the harbor. But no one realized that inside, the pressure was building. The Purity Distilling Company, which owned the tank, used it to store molasses brought in from the Caribbean. This was used to make industrial alcohol, a key ingredient for munitions during World War I. But the war was over now. The molasses inside had fermented, creating carbon dioxide and increasing the pressure far beyond what the thin steel walls could handle. Workers reported hearing strange noises, rivets popping, metal straining. But management dismissed their concerns, saying, "It's nothing, just the cold." They were wrong. At 12:30 p.m., the temperature rose suddenly, from freezing to over 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The steel expanded. Inside, the warm molasses began to bubble and surge. At 12:40, the tank groaned. At 12:45, it shook. And at exactly 12:46 p.m., a deafening roar split the city. The tank exploded. A wall of steel tore open, and a tsunami of boiling molasses burst into the streets. This wave was 25 feet high, moving at 35 miles per hour faster than a horse could run. It crashed through buildings, shattering wood and brick-like paper, tearing horses from their carts, and hurling trucks into the harbor. Witnesses said the sound was like a machine gun, as rivets popped like bullets. In seconds, an entire city block was gone. A firehouse on Commercial Street was crushed, its walls folded inward by the pressure. Firefighters inside were trapped in a sea of syrup. Police officers tried to reach them, but their boots stuck to the street, making it impossible to move. Children walking home were swept away. Horses screamed as they sank into the sticky flood. It was pure chaos, a battlefield made of molasses. The dark wave engulfed everything in its path. It smashed the elevated train track, bending steel girders like twigs. A streetcar was lifted off its rails and flipped over. Windows exploded from the pressure wave. Within minutes, 2 million gallons of hot, heavy molasses had flooded Boston's north end. The sweet smell filled the air, but it wasn't pleasant. It was suffocating, sticking to clothes, hair, and lungs. Rescue efforts began almost immediately. Firefighters and police struggled through waist-deep syrup, using makeshift planks to reach survivors. Men tied ropes around themselves so they could be pulled out if they got stuck. The Boston Post later wrote, "Molasses, waist-deep, covered the street and swirled and bubbled about the wreckage." Here and there struggled a form. Whether it was animal or human being was impossible to tell. For 2 days, rescuers fought to reach the trapped. As the molasses cooled, it thickened, turning the flood into quicksand. When the search finally ended, 21 people were dead and 150 were injured. The cleanup took months. Every surface in the north end was sticky. Crews used salt water and sand to wash the streets. Tragically, many horses had to be shot because they could not be freed. For years afterward, on hot summer days, Bostonians swore they could still smell molasses in the air. But the story doesn't end there. The question remained, who was to blame? The United States Industrial Alcohol Company, Purity Distilling's parent company, claimed the tank was sabotaged by anarchists as revenge for the war. But the public wasn't convinced. Investigators discovered the tank was poorly built. Its steel walls were only half as thick as they should have been, and it was never tested for pressure. Workers had even painted it brown to hide the constant leaks. For 6 years, a massive court case unfolded, the longest civil trial in Boston's history at that time. In the end, the company was found liable. They were forced to pay nearly $1 million in damages, which is equivalent to more than $15 million today. From this tragedy came change. The disaster led to the first modern building safety codes in the United States. For the first time, companies were required to have engineers sign off on structural designs and take responsibility for public safety. The Great Molasses Flood became a turning point, a grim reminder that corporate negligence can be as deadly as any weapon. Even today, more than a century later, people still visit Boston's North End to see where it happened. There's no tank now, no molasses, only a small plaque near the harbor. But if you walk there on a warm summer day, the locals will tell you, you can still smell the sweetness in the air. The Great Molasses Flood wasn't a war or an invasion. It was a battle between humanity and its own creation. And like many great tragedies, it began with something ordinary, something sweet that turned deadly. This was the day Boston drowned in molasses. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more forgotten moments from history. Thanks for watching.